Hey guys, Avros here, back again on Final Fantasy V as part of the 12 game challenge, and here we kick off from our last episode coming out of the ship graveyard, wandering the overworld here on our way to the next town, and just left some of this footage in here to show the travel, give you an idea of where we are in the world, and show off some of these random encounter rates here. So every time you see that zoom in effect that it's doing there on the map, that's a different random encounter that I've cut out of the footage because it's a bit boring to watch so many random encounters. Not so bad to play through them, but you know, he's making you sit through all those would be a bit boring, so went the wrong direction there up to that mountain to start with, got myself a little bit lost, so showing off where we're headed to next, but here we are in the town of Carwin to start with. Start off a bit of footage here as I travel around and grab some items just to make this a bit more streamlined, and as it says here, Kingdom of Waltz is south of where we are, and they use a machine to amplify the power of the water crystal. And as we say, we have to stop it, and the only way to get there is across the ocean, but there's no wind, no Sildra, so can't sail there by boat. So Gal apologizes, Faris from Mine Sildra's gone, and Avros gets asked what to do, and he's like, we can't go by sea, we can't go by land, so what's next? And just down here's a Frost Rod, which is a pretty cool item for the mages in the party, and here's another piano. So that's piano number 2 there, skills going up as we go along. And up in the top of the inn is this guy who tells us he saw a dragon flying around that north mountain. Looked all dragon-like, wearing armor and everything, and Lena thinks it might be her father's Windrake Hiryu. And if he's headed up to the North Mountain, it's one of the few places where dragon grass grows, so might be there to heal his wounds, because that's what dragon grass is for. So they'll decide to head to the North Mountain to find Hiryu, and here we are outside travelling again. Bought some more supplies in Carwin, some different gear for people. Mostly just armor and weapons, nothing too major to talk about, but did also pick up some gold needles. There's a few enemies up here on the North Mountain that can be a bit annoying and hit you with the stone status. Thankfully it didn't happen to me at all on the way through, but just gonna rest in this tent, get my health and mana back before we embark up North Mountain, and our next actual dungeon, the mountain here. So here's the North Mountain, and traveling through the cave system here, running around. We're gonna pick up some loot, but left the random encounters in here because there's some interesting enemies to show off, like these Gaily cats here, which are cats with gliders, wings. I'm not entirely sure, but they flying cats, so a bit weird. And some more than that. You can see they've kind of got like a backpack-looking thing with the wings, so I'm not sure if they're gliders or if they're, you know, wings that are actually on the enemy. Bestiary's not much help either, so I'll leave that up to your imagination what it is. So again, a lot of random encounters here in the cave, so sped up the footage here to get through these a bit quicker and sort of show off how everything's going in combat here at this point. Lots of Gaily cats. A lot of Gaily cat encounters in this mountain. They're probably one of the more common enemies here, so you'll see them a lot. And a Phoenix down there, helpful for reviving. And this battle's at normal speed because you're going to see these two enemies here, these headstones. They have a spell that you can learn as a blue mage. They have a blue magic spell by the name of Flash. But there's a interesting fact about them. Firstly, here we go, not enough MP. They can't ever actually cast Flash because they never start with enough mana and they don't have a way to recover it to actually cast the spell ever. So you have to kind of use an ether or something on them to restore their mana to actually have them have enough mana to use Flash so that you can learn the spell. The other interesting thing, which I was going to point out before I went to use Flash, is you can steal an item from them called Silver Specs, which I'm going to equip here on Lena, which prevents the darkness status, which is what Flash causes, which reduces your accuracy in combat for physical attacks and makes it much harder to hit with them. So very useful to steal from them if you've got a thief in the party, which is one of the reasons why we've kept Avros as a thief, is so that he can learn steal from the job before we change his class, because it's very useful to have. I will eventually try and get Mug so he can do damage while he's stealing, but for now we're just trying to get him to learn steal, because Mug takes a lot more ABP to learn, so traveling through the mountain, climbing up, getting higher up onto the mountain, trying to get towards the top so we can find out if Hiryu's the Windrake that's up there. If he is, then that'll be a nice, easy, convenient way for us to get to the Kingdom of Waltz. So sometimes you get rooms like this where you get 90% of the way through before a random encounter happens, and it's just much better when something like that happens, because it's less frustrating to deal with. But on this section here, you'll see me walking around these purple flowers. They're one of the few environmental hazards in this game. What they'll actually do if you walk over them is they'll actually inflict the poison status on your entire party, which is incredibly annoying. Not too hard to get rid of at this point if you have a White Mage or anyone with the White Magic skill, as they'll have Poisoner, but it's still just something you want to avoid, so you'll see me here just carefully walking around these flowers. And speaking of stone, like I said earlier, the Cockatrice here in combat, I focused it down first because that's the monster in this area that causes stone status, which petrifies your party member and makes them unable to attack whatsoever, and for the intents and purposes of a game over from all your party dying in combat, counts as them being dead. So yeah, you really want to avoid that. So found the save point here, generally a good indicator that a boss fight is coming up, so use the 10 here, restore health and mana to the whole party, and then forgot to save, so save here. A bit of a safety save in case we need to redo the boss fight. And here we go out to the next area, and Lena spots a helmet and says it's her dad's, which gives an idea that it might be Hiryu here, and then is struck by a poison arrow. And conveniently, the cliff falls apart, and this lovely lady here, Megissa, is hunting a Windrake up on the mountain because they're, you know, horns fetch a high price, but caught the Princess of Tycoon instead. And as far as calls her, addle-pated, foul-complexioned Scofflaw says that Lena will make a nice present for her husband. I'll leave that up to your imagination there, exactly what that means, but Faris falls off the side, but with a surge of strength, climbs her way back up the side of the mountain there, and his throat makes a weird noise, but throws it over to Avros, and they tie it off, and Galuf and Avros can come across. And yeah, boss fight up ahead here. So Avros gets Lena up, and you know, says she'll have to crush all four of us for ruining her plans. So our next boss here is Megissa, 650 HP, immune to nothing, weak to nothing. So just a straight fight, and yeah, humanoid. A lot of immunities there to different statuses. Not so many we can really cause at this point, but not immune to silence, which is a good strategy for beating her if you're worried about how this fight's going to go, because she does cast a lot of spells. Has nothing to steal though, and as you can see, Lena, struck by the poison arrow before this fight started, actually starts combat poison, so we'll just remove that poison effect there and start laying into Megissa. We've got healers, so as per usual we can heal them up if necessary and keep them alive. So, very straightforward encounter. She's just going to cast a lot of spells and occasionally hit with critical attack, which against a heavily armored character like Lena doesn't do a huge amount of damage. And this fight just goes past fairly uneventfully here, and boss is dead. We get our EVP, Galuf gets a job level, one's black 3, and we get a whip from her, which is for another class. And yeah, I was trying to show off a different side of this boss fight, so made a bit of a mistake here, so my bad, had to go back and redo this boss fight, because her husband's supposed to show up, and this is her husband here, Forza, has a lot more HP at 850, drops a power drink, which is really early for that to drop, seeing as you can't use it until you have the chemist class, immune to nothing, weak against nothing. Not really too much to say about Forza. He's the opposite of Megissa. He has less immunities, but he hits really, really hard and just relies on melee attacks. And when he gets summoned, Megissa's going to hit him with regen. So you'll see that at the start of the fight here. Back to the start. Got a slightly different party here. This is in a backup save file I made, so brought 3 knights along this time to make dealing with Forza a bit easier for showing this off, and switched Galuf over to a White Mage, as I was going to use the Protect spell on the party to reduce their damage, and then remembered that, whoops, I didn't pick up Protect. So Megissa hitting the party there with Arrow, or hitting Galuf there with Arrow, sorry. And so we're just sort of laying into Megiza here, getting her down to about 300 health, and here we go, here's Forza showing up in combat here. So I'm going to throw a kill with Galuf, and you'll notice that the first round of combat that Megiza has, she's going to cast Regen on Forza, and going to start him slowly regenerating health throughout this entire combat, which is makes this a lot more difficult considering he's got a lot more health than she does, and hits a lot harder. So actually beating her without her summoning Forza is a legitimate strategy for making the fight easier, but I did it completely unintentionally the first time around, and had to go back and re-record this footage, so not much more to say. You know, silencing Megiza so she can't cast Regen on Forza when he gets summoned in is a legitimate strategy to beat this fight. A lot of people like to have Forza summoned so they can get that free power drink, because they're not cheap, but even if you do get Forza, as long as you got healing and damage, the early game boss fights are not particularly complicated. So rest of the party here, now the Forza's gone, is just lays into Megiza, and that's it, fight's over again. And yeah, power drink and a whip, because that's the drops, and after the boss fight's over, just a little bit of wrap up here in the story. Lena thanks Faris for saving her, and the party travels up to the top of North Mountain, where we see a familiar face in Hiryu, and unfortunately he's hurt really bad. And so you might be thinking these purple flowers were the dragon grass all along, but no, that's the dragon grass up there that Lena's risking her life to go and get. So walks through the purple flowers here to get the dragon grass, severely poisoning herself, and gives it to Faris to give to Hiryu, and passes out. And Hiryu eats the dragon grass, and is beseeched by Lena to get well, and seems in much better spirits here, so Galuf's like, just reckless girl. And Hiryu flies over, looks like he lands that purple flower there, so I guess Windrakes are immune to poison, and sort of licks Lena or something, I'm not sure, but cures her poisoning, and they're both hale and hearty again, and Avros backs off a bit, and says he doesn't really like heights, which for some reason the whole party finds hilarious. And Galuf makes fun of Avros's face he's making, and then shoves him onto the dragon. And now that we've got ourselves a Windrake to fly around on, we take off from the top of North Mountain, and we're ready for our next adventure down to the Kingdom of Vol. So, as you can see, hovering over the top of North Mountain there, we've got ourselves a dragon to fly around on, so don't really need chocobos to run across land when you've got a dragon. So thanks for watching, and catch you in the next episode when we go to the Kingdom of Vol on the back of our Windrake here. So, see you then.